Istanbul in the 1960s was a city of contrasts. Its cobbled streets whispered tales of tradition, while the flickering neon lights of its taverns heralded the slow creep of modernity. Beneath the veil of its bustling markets and ancient architecture lay a secret as dark as the Bosphorus at midnight. This story, though steeped in history, is not merely one of peculiar customs. It's a tale of shadows, of lies intertwined with deception and danger, and of the unsung figures known as küfeci, the basketmen. It began with a scream, a guttural cry that split the air on an otherwise tranquil night. The residents of the Karaköy district, a bustling hub by day and eerily quiet, rushed to their windows. There, in the dim light of a gas lamp, stood a man trembling, his face as pale as the moon above. In his shaking hands, he held a blood-stained basket. The man, Orhan, was one of the küfeci, a porter by day, who earned extra coin by carrying drunkards home from the taverns after dark. His work, though grueling, was predictable. Until tonight, the basket he had carried to the home of a wealthy merchant was meant to contain yet another inebriated soul. Instead, it held a lifeless body, the victim of a savage crime. The police were swift to arrive, their footsteps echoing through the narrow streets as they converged on the scene. Inspector Selim, a man known for his sharp wit and unrelenting pursuit of justice, took charge. He towered over Orhan, his piercing gaze demanding answers. "Who gave you this basket?" Selim's voice was low, but firm. Orhan stammered, his words tumbling over one another. I didn't." His face. "Effendi, the tavern keeper called me as usual, said a man needed to get home. When I arrived, the basket was ready, closed as always. I swear I didn't know what was inside." Selim frowned, his mind already weaving theories. The küfeci system was both a necessity and a vulnerability in the city's nightlife. Drunken patrons entrusted to these men rarely questioned the logistics of their journey, and the taverns operated under an unspoken code of discretion. But now that very code had been shattered, revealing a sinister underbelly. Word spread quickly through Istanbul, and the küfeci found themselves under scrutiny. Once regarded as harmless problem solvers, they were now eyed with suspicion. The taverns, once boisterous havens of revelry, became quiet, their patrons wary of what, or who, might await them at the end of the night. Inspector Selim, determined to uncover the truth, delved into the world of the küfeci. He learned of their routines, their struggles, and the unspoken rules that governed their nightly endeavors. Most were honest men, eking out a living in a city that demanded both strength and cunning. But among them were whispers of a darker faction, küfeci, who had turned to crime, exploiting their role to smuggle goods, abduct victims, or worse. The investigation took a grim turn when another body was discovered, this time near the docks. Like the first victim, this one bore marks of violence, and once again a basket was involved. The pattern was unmistakable, and the city was gripped by fear. Selim knew he was racing against time. One night, posing as a drunken patron, Selim stumbled into a notorious tavern in Galata. The air was thick with the stench of cheap raki and sweat, the clinking of glasses punctuated by raucous laughter. He feigned drunkenness, slurring his words as he ordered drink after drink. When the hour grew late, he signaled the tavern keeper, a grizzled man with a scar that ran the length of his cheek. "Call me a küfeci," Selim mumbled, his head lolling. The keeper hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "You don't look like the usual lot," he said, his voice low. Selim forced a drunken laugh. "New in town, got coin though." He fumbled in his pocket, producing a handful of lira. The keeper's demeanor changed and he nodded toward the back door. "Wait there." Minutes later, a küfeci arrived, a towering man with arms like tree trunks and eyes that gleamed with a dangerous intelligence. He hoisted Selim onto his back, the inspector barely fitting into the oversized basket. Through the slats, Selim watched as the man navigated the labyrinthine streets, his movements deliberate and precise. Something was amiss. The journey took longer than expected, and Selim's senses sharpened. They weren't heading toward the address he'd provided. Instead, they veered toward the outskirts of the city, where abandoned warehouses loomed like specters. The basket was set down roughly, and Selim braced himself as the lid creaked open. "You row, wait," the küfeci said, his voice devoid of warmth. "Good, saves me the trouble." Selim sprang into action, his cover blown but his instincts sharp. A struggle ensued. The küfeci's brute strength matched against Selim, agility and training. The fight was brutal, but Selim managed to overpower the man, pinning him to the ground as reinforcements arrived. Under interrogation, the küfeci revealed the chilling truth. He was part of a network that used the guise of the küfeci system to commit heinous acts. Their victims were carefully chosen, drunks with no close family, easy to rob or eliminate without raising immediate alarm. The baskets, once symbols of care, had become tools of terror. Selim's investigation led to the unraveling of the entire operation. Several tavern keepers were implicated, their establishments serving as hubs for the criminal enterprise. The network's leaders were apprehended, and the city breathed a collective sigh of relief. In the aftermath, the küfeci system was forever tainted by the crimes that had exploited its trust. Though many honest küfeci continued their work, the practice eventually faded as modern transportation rendered it obsolete. But the legend of the basketmen endured, a cautionary tale of how even the most mundane traditions could harbor secrets and shadows. As for Inspector Selim, he remained a hero in the eyes of Istanbul, his name spoken with reverence in the years to come. Yet in the quiet moments, he often found himself haunted by the image of that first blood-stained basket, a stark reminder of the darkness that lurks in even the most unexpected corners of life.